Hey guys, a friend of mine asked me to maybe do a video about installing VCT tile, vinyl composition tile, and you know, when I told him I'd do it, we were dead in the water at work. I thought, oh yeah, great, give me something to do. Well, since then, my boss has taken some time off to take vacation and do some other things, and I've been getting all his appointments, and I'm hardly ever in the store anymore. And that's about the only place I have to do a tile layout. You know, I don't have any rooms in my home that need done or anything, so I figured I'd start with step one and drew it out on a piece of paper here. And this is going to show you how to lay your tiles out so you have an equal cut tile size on that end and this end, and then an equal one on this end and this end. Now, if they're two different measurements, you can't get, say, a 6-inch tile all the way around. It's just not going to work out. So what I do is I measure the length of the room. In this case, this room is 25 feet 9 inches. VCT tile is generally 12 inches square. So what you do, you take the size of the tile, 12, and you add the inch. Don't worry about the number or the feet. You just take the inch. So you take, I probably can't see this, 9 plus 12, which gives you 21, and you divide that by 2. Divide it by 2 gives you 10 and a half. So you'll have a 10 and a half inch tile along this wall and a 10 inch and a half tile along the other opposite wall. So I'll just mark that up here right now. 10 foot 6. It's 10 and a half feet. Now this way our area is 12 feet 4 inches. Don't worry about the 12. Take the 4 plus 12, 16, divided by 2, gives you 8. So you're going to have an 8-inch cut along this wall and an 8-inch cut along the opposite wall. Now, you do not need to chalk two separate lines. The tiles are square. So once you mark a straight line, that's going to give you where to put your first row. Then all you need is a starting mark on that first row, because you don't want to, do an X and then try to follow the tiles up this way, then try to follow the one that way, because your tiles are square. The room may not be square, and you'll be veering off, and then that's going to leave big, large gaps in what we call runs and windows, where you should be meeting up at 4 corners. 4 tiles come together. Those corners where they meet should all be dead perfect. Now, I glue up the glue we use. It's called Clear Set. You glue the entire room, and you walk away and let it totally dry till you touch it. Nothing comes off on your fingers. So, how do you do that? Doorways aren't always at the corner of the room. So what I do, say this doorway's way out here, I know that this wall's going to have an 8-inch cut, that wall's going to have an 8-inch cut. So I will measure over, say if the doorway is 4 foot from that wall, I'll measure over 4 feet 8 inches. And I will make me a mark, 4 feet 8 inches. I'll go up to the other end of the room, make a mark 4 feet 8 inches. And then I'll take a chalk line and snap a line down that middle of the room to where it comes into the doorway. This way you can stack all your boxes of tile out here, out of the way, in the hallway or outside, wherever. So you've got your main chalk line. Now you're going to have a 10 and a half inch. That ain't 10 foot 6. I messed up. 10 foot or 10 inch, 10 and 1/2 inch cut on each one of these opposite walls. So I'll just come up my main chalk line that I did, and I'll make sure I'm past any obstacles where I can lay out a whole tile, and I'll come up 10 and 1/2 inches and make a cross mark. So now my first tile will go alongside the main chalk line, and I'll begin it at my starting mark. Now right here will be a 10 and 1/2 inch cut, And by the time I lay all these tiles down that chalk line, my last cut here will be 10.5 inches. Okay, so you chalk your line, and if you want to, you can take a straight edge, lay down on that chalk line and run your pencil or something down it. But most of the time you can glue over that chalk line and it'll stay in place. The glue goes on yellow and you may not be able to see it when it's wet, but when the glue dries, it's clear and you'll be able to see any marks you made underneath that glue. Now if you have an odd shaped room, say, this part isn't here, it's a closet you're not going to do or something, and you want to make sure you don't have a 1/2 inch piece to cut in along the side, well, you're just going to have to figure out, do you want equal cuts on both sides, or do you want to make sure you don't have a half cut there? There may be something when you walk in that visually draws your eye and you don't want small pieces there. Well, then you can adjust back and forth to come up with a happy medium of what you may like. Just remember, it may end up being a 8-inch cut here and then, a 3.5 inch cut up here if you adjust it. But as long as you go by that formula, inches plus the width of the tile divided by 2 will give you your cuts on the opposite walls. And then of course these walls will have a different inch at the end, so it's going to be a different size cut, but they will be equal on both sides. That is my formula for coming up with equal cuts. Like I say, the glue is called Clear Set. You put it on with a real thin notch trowel, like a 1/16 of an inch by a 1/16 of an inch notch. And you want to make sure you don't leave any holidays, any blank spots. You want to make sure you don't leave any puddles. As you're troweling along, all you want to see is teeth marks. If you get some high ridges, wipe back over it with your trowel. Smooth them out and get those ridges back in there. Let that totally dry. Once it dries, you start here, you open up a box of tile, and you lay your first one there, and your next one, and then I usually go ahead and make them 2 or 3 tiles wide so that I can have enough room to crawl on it. And you don't want to worry about too much about the tile sliding, because that glue, when it dries, it will really grab, and you're not going to move it. The only way you're going to move it is if you got tennis shoes on, and when you're on your knees, your feet are on your toes, and then your toes want to push back, and pushing back slowly with your toes, if you're on one spot, can move that towel back a little bit. But kind of work on the sides of your feet, tuck them up underneath you, and that way any part of your body that's touching the towel has kind of a slick surface, your jeans or whatever, and it's just going to slide on it and it's not going to push the tiles. But once that tile's down, you won't be able to get back up without a heat gun or a blowtorch. You heat it up, and then it softens the tile, softens the glue. You peel it up. You don't have to re-glue it. You can just pop a new tile back in. That glue will stay good, well, forever almost. But anyway, this is for Mobile Tech, and over the next few days, when I catch breaks at the shop, I'm going to lay it all out and use real tiles and show you how to make some cuts. You don't need any special tools to cut vinyl tile. You need a blowtorch, heat gun, real hot hair dryer, and utility knife. Maybe a compass to make some radius cuts. But I'll get into all that as soon as I can. But I just want to get this one out here. This is already going to be 10 minutes long. If I do a whole thing, good Lord, it's probably going to be 45 minutes long. So I'm going to break this up into a few different parts. I just want to get this one out here so everybody can get in their head how to lay your tile out. And like I say, you don't have to come, if this is going to be an 8-inch cut along this wall, you don't have to chalk your line 8 inches. You come over 1 foot 8 inches, 2 foot 8 inches, 3 foot 8 inches, 4 foot 8 inches. Wherever that starting line will be, so that you're in a doorway. Because when you start gluing this up, you're going to start at the far end of the room, get it all glued, and glue yourself out the door. And then you go smoke a cigarette, maybe cheat a little bit, get you a cold drink, go get lunch, something. You can put a fan on this, it helps dry it a little bit faster. And you want to make sure the fan isn't blowing any dust. onto that tile. That tile will stay sticky for days at a time until a layer of dust, or you're on a construction site, sawdust, whatever, stuff in the air settles on it and kills the tack. So the tack will stay good as long as it's not killed up by dust or anything. If you close the door to the room, you come back a week from now and start laying that tile. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I'll continue this when I'm in the shop and I've got some Luan laid out, some actual tile. I'll glue up a board, I'll snap a line, and I'll get into how to make cuts. See y'all.